The hearings related to holding Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress are still going on. There are two hearings, one in the House Oversight Committee, one in the House Judiciary Committee. They are both in recess right now because the full House is taking votes on the House floor. So they had their hearings, worked through a number of amendments, and when the House floor votes are done, then the two committees will reconvene, and then they will go from there. The issue is about Hunter Biden not testifying before either of these two committees. The House Oversight Committee is chaired by James Comer. The House Judiciary Committee is chaired by Jim Jordan, both Republicans, because Republicans control the House right now. And they both have to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings. We've talked on this program in the past about the effort to find evidence that would be impeachable against President Biden. That is ultimately what this is about. It's not so much about Hunter Biden per se. It is very nakedly, and no one really makes a secret of that, it is about President Biden and whether he has committed any kinds of dealings that would enrich his family in ways that violate the emoluments clause of the Constitution. Democrats push back by saying, you're one to talk, Republicans. Do you know who Joe Biden's predecessor was? The last guy was one big emolument, and you didn't say a word about it. And now you want to raise a stink about the Biden family enriching themselves covertly. Donald Trump enriched himself overtly, so put up or shut up. They have also been going back and forth today over the nature of these hearings in general, over calling someone out for contempt. Let's be clear, no one disputes that if you are subpoenaed to testify before Congress, you show up. It's the law. Technically, you could be thrown in jail for that. Technically, the punishments for contempt can go as high as a year in prison and a $100,000 fine. So this is not a small matter. When Congress tells you to show up, you damn well better be there. The issue also is whether or not the process of getting Hunter Biden before either of these two House committees, which again, they have the power to subpoena him, whether the process was done properly. There is latitude in the way this is done in terms of how somebody testifies. There are a lot of different ways to give testimony to Congress. You can submit a document. You can testify as a supportive witness. You can appear in a hearing directly. You can appear in a deposition behind closed doors. Maybe it's a matter of national security, and it's not something that everyone gets to hear live if they hear it at all. So there's all kinds of discretion in the way that it's done and in the nature of the hearing, in the way the information is proffered, and so on. There's all kinds of discretion. It's not like, it's almost like being in court. You can testify and give a deposition, or you can testify in open court. It's all official. It's just handled differently because sometimes the information is sensitive or unsubstantiated, or it's got to be proven. It's got to be nailed down. And there's all kinds of ways that it can happen. And so part of this is about the timeline of events and the ways in which Hunter Biden was solicited to testify before we got to this point. And I will get to that as well. It was also just political drama. Y'all. Do we know each other at this point? Would you say that you know me? Kind of. Because you should know at this point that I do not like drama. I love a good story, but I don't like a lot of drama. Not in my life. Me and Mary J. Blige are on the same wavelength about that, boo. I don't like it. And I don't like when drama gets in the way of getting work done. The drama that happened today got big time in the way of getting all kinds of work done, and it has been nuts. And again, as I said, the hearings are still in session. They are at recess, but they're not over yet. They're still yet to vote on the measures that are on their way. So more drama is afoot. And if you like drama, Lord Jesus, you should be watching the stream of this because, and it's not even good drama. It's kind of like spinning in the same directions over and over and sort of retreading the same ground. And between Democrats and Republicans, I don't think we're hearing a whole lot that is new. So what I want to do is I want to play you a few cuts from the hearing. I watched it, so you didn't have to. And you can just buy me therapy. But I will play you a few cuts from the hearing today, 2 from Democrats and 2 from Republicans, starting with Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who is a Republican from South Carolina. Early in the hearing, I should note, first of all, Hunter Biden, rather unexpectedly, showed up at the hearing. I think a lot of people didn't really expect him to bother with this, but we found out that he was going to be there, and he showed up, and sure enough, he was there. He didn't stay for the whole hearing. He didn't stay for very long, in fact, and I'll show you that too. While Hunter Biden was still at the hearing, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who's a Republican from South Carolina, addressed him directly. Now, the way these hearings usually go, if you've never watched one of these, which you should understand how your government is working. And indeed, there's another hearing going on right now at a Senate committee that I think is interesting that I may actually bring you tomorrow, depending on what comes of it. The way these hearings go, the chairman gavels the hearing to order. He announces what the hearing's about. They deal with any official business that has to happen right off the top. And then this is the kind of a hearing called a markup. When a bill is going to go through the committee process to the House, those of you who know Schoolhouse Rock remember this whole process, that I'm just a bill. This is when it's sitting in committee. So once it's sitting in committee before it goes to the seat of the full House, the members in that committee have a chance to offer amendments or to change the bill before it moves on. That's called the markup process. These contempt of Congress resolutions are in markup right now. So the House Oversight Committee and the House Judiciary Committee each have a version of this contempt of Congress amendment. They're basically the same, but it's going through two different committees because two different committees wanted to talk to him. They'll mark the bill up and then send them to the floor of the House. The House would only pass one resolution. They might have the option of both, but they would probably only pass one or only need to pass one. So today is markup day. Even if these measures pass the House, which again, the hearings are in recess. I'll put up another window to monitor them now. I had to close the window because my computer was like, please don't do this to me. I could hear the soul of my Mac screaming out from Cupertino, California. But what'll happen is they'll reconvene the hearing, they'll finish the markup, vote. If the measure passes, then it will go to the floor of the full House. I don't know if they'll try to reconcile it between the two of them. They might not, but that's kind of the process as it stands right now. So the chairman gavels the hearing to order. They have the clerk read the measure that's being discussed, that's being marked up. The chairman can make remarks. The ranking member of the committee can make remarks. In the case of the House Oversight Committee, that's Congressman Jamie Raskin, who's a Democrat from Maryland. You may remember he was the lead House impeachment manager for former President Trump's second impeachment hearing. And then after that, members who want to speak on the measure can speak. This is where and why it got chaotic, because everyone doesn't always speak on markup for every single bill. Some bills are really rather benign. And so members are just like, not much to say. They're there in the hearing. They're not there in the hearing. They may offer an amendment or whatever, and then people vote on the bill. This was not that day. Everybody has something to say about this measure, of course, and the feelings are very, very high, and the blood is very, very hot. So it's a little bit crazy. It was a little bit nuts today. Let me start with Congresswoman Mace. And again, she is speaking with Hunter Biden in the room. I won't play all of what she said, but here is how her comments to Hunter Biden began.
Chair recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Comer. First of all, my first question is, who bribed Hunter Biden to be here today? That's my first question. Second question, you are the epitome of white privilege, coming into the Oversight Committee, spitting in our face, ignoring a congressional subpoena to be deposed. What are you afraid of? You have no balls to come up here and—
Mr. Chairman, point of inquiry.
Mr. Chairman,
If the gentlelady wants to hear from
things.
Hunter Biden, we can hear from him right now, Mr.
And
Chairman.
you
Let's take a
stupid
vote and
president.
hear from Hunter
I'm
Biden.
speaking.
What are you
women
afraid
allowed
of?
to speak
What are you
here?
afraid of?
Hold on.
Why-
Order,
why are you
order,
guys not
order.
willing to let
To
us
Hey.
hear it?
speak in
All
here
right.
or no? Are women allowed to speak in here or no?
Order.
Could you keep interrupting me?
I'll interrupt the
You
chair. I don't know
interrupted.
that he's a lady.
I think that Hunter Biden should be arrested right here, right now, and go straight to jail. Our nation is founded on the rule of law.
Come on.
And the premise
Come
that the
on.
law applies equally to everyone, no matter what your last
Point of order,
name.
Mr. Chairman. Point of
It
order.
doesn't matter who you are.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Biggs over here.
So that's how it started. That was Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who was a Republican from South Carolina, speaking very early on in the hearing. So that happened. After she spoke, you heard the guy who was joking about, like, oh, well, he's not a lady. That was Congressman Jared Moskowitz, a Democratic congressman. He shot back at the committee chairman over the process by which the committee had tried to get Hunter Biden to testify. I'm going to let you hear what he said, and then I need to give a little more context thereafter. But here's what we heard from Congressman Jared Moskowitz.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to hear from you. Will you acknowledge that you invited the witness on television to choose whether he could come to a public hearing? And do you stand by your words, or do you renege that invitation to the witness?
To answer the question, I've said repeatedly, after the deposition, Mr. Biden can come in front of a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to play the video, but that is not what you said on television multiple times. We have the quotes. We can put them up. You said the witness can choose between a deposition.
Listen, Mr. Moskowitz, Mr. Biden doesn't make the rules. We make the
No, Mr. Chairman, you make the rules. And the rule you made is that he can choose.
The rule is
Those were your words. Reclaiming my time.
he was issued 2 lawful subpoenas.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. No, you issued those subpoenas after he took you up on your invitation to come, and then you were like, oh, no, oh, my God, what did I do? I invited him to come so the American people can hear his side of the story. I put my foot in my mouth, so now I must bury him in the basement where we can decide what we're going to release to the public so that we can continue to tell that story. Mr. Chairman, you have said multiple times that this is not about Hunter. It's about Joe Biden. And even this morning on Mornings with Maria, she asked another simple question, the question you have been asked multiple times, which is, do you have evidence to impeach the President of the United States? Before you said, I hope so. Today you said, I think so. And the answer is, you don't. And you still don't.
That was Congressman Jared Moskowitz, Democratic congressman, speaking today, right after the exchange we heard with Congresswoman Nancy Mace. And that is one of the key points of this whole process. This is indeed, as I said, this is about Joe Biden. This isn't really about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden has his own issues, whether it is related to this weapons charge in Delaware or whether it's tax charges in California, which I believe he's flying out for a hearing tomorrow, Thursday, for that. So he's got problems a go-go right now. But this is not actually about him. It's also important to note that the smoking gun hasn't really landed in a way that people in general could go, oh yeah, that's pretty clear. So the argument from Democrats, at least, is this is a bit of a fishing expedition. Now, Republicans would shoot back. That is the point of hearings and subpoenas, is to go fish. If we believe that something is wrong, we have to have this mechanism available so that we can be able to dig these matters out. It's, whether you like the way that it was done with Nixon and Watergate or you hate the way it was done with Joseph McCarthy and the so-called Red Scare, this is what the House is allowed to do. And it's allowed to do these things politically. That's the counter argument, that just because you don't like the politics, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing this. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be asking these questions. That doesn't mean that Hunter Biden should not show up. The point that Jared Moskowitz is trying to make, which is, I think, a cogent point, is that this is not the only way to get the information. If you wanted to hear from Hunter Biden, you could also just let him testify. Part of the way the process works is that the House, or whatever committee it is, House Committee, Senate Committee, when they want someone to testify and the person says, I'm not so comfortable with this, you figure out another way to get it done. So maybe he doesn't testify in a deposition. Maybe you just have him testify in the open. And then if there are additional questions, you can submit those to him and he has to respond in writing in a certain amount of time. So it's not that that's your one and only shot. The value of a hearing is that it lets the American people see everything and watch the whole thing end to end and see good, bad, and ugly. A deposition is much more controlled. The people who are running the deposition, the party in power, can choose how much of it to publish. That's why Democrats are concerned about it. They say that they want to make sure that the whole record gets out in the open, and they don't believe that they will have the latitude to do that if it's purely behind closed doors. That's the counter argument. So Nora, I saw your comment. Nora wrote, this is why closed door depositions are a good idea. The flip side of that, granted, to Nora's point, is that hearings are crazy on a good day. Congressional hearings get really nutty really fast. And part of the nice thing that might be furthered by having closed door depositions is we don't have to watch this flea circus. This is just nuts. And we don't have to be a party to all of that. On the other hand, Democrats say there should be a flea circus. There should be a 33-ring circus if this is what the Republicans are about, so the American people can see that this is a fishing expedition. And of course, we have very mixed feelings about hearings, right? We have very mixed feelings about impeachment processes. Donald Trump went through 2 of them. The first one, kind of connected to the Mueller report, didn't feel as strong. The second one felt much more stable. So there's a lot going on there. And there's a lot in the political willingness to be a part of something like this. Frankly, I do not look forward to being a part of anything like that. I remember when I was at MSNBC and we were covering the second Trump impeachment. It's a huge deal. It's a very complex matter. And I kind of, as an anchor, liked the opportunity to walk viewers through the process very methodically. This is what's happening. This is what was said. This is where it goes. This is what it means. To me, it's kind of valuable to have those moments of this is what your government looks like when it's working. The issue, though, is that the government has a lot more work to do besides Hunter Biden. And I'll get to that in just a second. But there is a value, I think, in being able to see the process as nakedly as possible. And everybody does not look good naked. But it's something that I think we need to be able to have. As I mentioned, Hunter Biden was there for most of the hearing, for much of the hearing in the beginning. He didn't stay for most of the hearing, but he was there. He was there for much of the beginning of the hearing, but he didn't stay very long. He walked out of the hearing room just as Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, was about to speak. And again, this is really early in the hearing, right? You have the chairman speak, the ranking member, Jamie Raskin, a few members spoke, and then it goes to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then Hunter Biden leaves. Where he went, I don't know. Why he went, I don't know. At first, I thought he left to go to the other committee hearing, to the Judiciary Committee, but it doesn't appear that he went there. Just from kind of listening to the hearing and seeing what people said, I think some of them thought that he was still at Oversight and not in the room with them. So it looks like he just left or went somewhere else. Anyway, this is that moment when Marjorie Taylor Greene did not get a chance to spit directly in Hunter Biden's eye, as did Congresswoman Mace. Note not only the intense reaction, but what Marjorie Taylor Greene begins to talk about as she excoriates Hunter Biden. Here's what she said.
Recognize Ms. Greene from Georgia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, Hunter. Apparently you're afraid of my words.
Whoa! Oh.
I'd like to reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
Wow, that's too bad.
I think it's clear and obvious for everyone watching this hearing today that Hunter Biden is terrified of strong conservative Republican women because he can't even face my words as I was about to speak to him. What a coward. And this is also a coward that sat right here in front of Mickey Babbitt, Ashley Babbitt's mother, who was murdered on January 6th by Michael Byrd, the Capitol Police officer.
So those were the beginning of Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments after Hunter Biden walked out of the room. Ashley Babbitt, you may remember the young woman who died in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th during the insurrection after former President Trump sent the mob to the Capitol to, as they put it, stop the so-called steal of the electoral results. She was shot dead by a U.S. Capitol police officer, which is what Marjorie Taylor Greene is referring to. Why would I bring that up? Because the nexus of all of these events, the aegis over which this is cast, covers so many different things. It covers all of this debate between Democrats and Republicans about how we do government. And January 6th loops into this in a number of ways. One of which being Jim Jordan, who's the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, defied subpoenas to testify about January 6th. And so you had in the other committee, the Judiciary Committee, Adam Schiff, congressman from California, who also helped with the impeachment process of Donald Trump, who proposed an amendment to the Hunter Biden contempt resolution. The amendment didn't pass, not surprisingly, but he proposed an amendment that would add Jim Jordan's name to the contempt resolution, saying basically, okay, I'm fine if you want to hold Hunter Biden in contempt, but didn't you also do much the same thing? Didn't we ask you for information about that day when we were literally running for our lives and you thumbed your nose at the committee at that time? What wasn't that? Didn't that happen? Let's add your name to the resolution. He got some support in that, Adam Schiff did, from his fellow Democrats. But when they said, I'm going to support the resolution, they said, I'll support the resolution with misgivings. Reason being, they didn't want Hunter Biden to be held in contempt. They didn't think that it was necessary, and they believed that the process should have allowed him to speak and find a way to get an actual testimony out of him without having to go through the whole process of contempt. But to make the point, they said they were willing to go with that and amend the resolution with, as they said, misgivings. That amendment did not survive, and so they moved on from there. And again, they are at recess. They're doing other votes in the full House, and when that's over, then they'll come back and keep going with this. But that's part of the argument, is that, well, okay, you wanted it then. You didn't want it then, but you want it now. Let's let's have an apples to apples standard here. One of the other issues, which Congressman Darrell Issa, who's a Republican from California, brought up, is that those contempt resolutions expire at the end of every Congress. So if, for example, this one did not pass, then in 2025, when a new Congress is seated, that all goes away and they would have to start over. So he opposed the measure on procedural grounds. Congressman Issa, who is a Republican, said that the measure was improper on procedural grounds because it happened in the last Congress. And if they wanted him to testify, Jim Jordan to testify in this Congress, and he told this Congress no, there would have to be a new contempt resolution. Granted, this Congress is led by Republicans rather than Democrats, so the odds of a new contempt resolution against Jim Jordan are basically slim to none, and Slim left a room. So he's basically saying that it's not possible. Yeah, so that was a procedural reason why. But that argument hangs over all of this too, and that's why January 6th came up. Marjorie Taylor Greene is obviously very much a January 6th truther, which is a term that I hate, fabulist, liar, about what happened there and the political aftermath thereof. But the sting has not gone away on either side of the aisle. You have a number of Republicans who are still mad that January 6th is even an issue and that Donald Trump's name has been dragged through the mud. I think rightly so, because I was working on January 6th and I saw what happened from my perch. Anyway, I wasn't in DC, but I was there watching live like, are my colleagues going to get hurt or worse? So January 6th happened. And the ongoing fallout from that dovetails directly with the election we're about to have that's about to start on Monday with the Iowa caucuses with regard to whether or not someone like the former president is able to do what he did on January 6th and walk back into the White House again. That's why there was that hearing yesterday about presidential immunity in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Maybe we'll get to that today because there's always something to talk about. See, this is why I struggle to put today's show together. It's too damn much to talk about. There are too many things going on, and none of them make me feel good. So it's a very difficult day for me. But we'll get through it one way or the other. I will be strong, and we will get through it. But that's what's going on, is that this is this long-running thread from January 6th, which runs right through Hunter Biden. And you have Republicans saying, fine, you think Donald Trump is corrupt. How about Joe Biden? What about his son and the way they enrich themselves? You wanted to get rid of Donald Trump. We got to deal with Joe Biden the same way, don't we? That's the argument. And if we can find something from Hunter Biden that shows that his father was enriched by his son's business dealings, then why wouldn't we want to impeach him too? You wanted to do it to Donald Trump. You don't want to do it to Joe Biden. Why not that? Democrats respond, people died on January 6th. We're not passing bills. What is happening here? And that takes me to the last cut of tape that I wanted to run from a congresswoman whose name you might not know, but she said something I thought was very cogent today. And I thought, well, who cares if it's one of the usual suspects that you know? I think you should at least hear what she said. Her name is Becca Balint. She is a congresswoman from Vermont. She is an at-large congresswoman. Vermont has at-large districts because Vermont is this big. She is one of the few out members of Congress. And she made a remark today that I thought was very, very worthwhile about what are we doing here? Like, what is this foolishness? What's going on here? Here is what Congresswoman Becca Balint from Vermont had to say today.
So let's talk more about those real people, those regular people who send us here to do work on their behalf. Not only are the chairman's investigations a cynical waste of time, but they have put the lives of regular people in danger. Witnesses that have appeared before this committee have testified that House Republicans have spread dangerous conspiracy theories about them, and it has led to threats against their families and against them. Regular people, regular Americans. For instance, after Chairman Jordan posted an edited video of her on Twitter, one witness who was 9 months pregnant at the time had to get a restraining order against a man who repeatedly doxed her family. She had to disguise herself to go to prenatal visits because of the stalking and of the tens of thousands of death threats that she experienced. She ended up having to hire a private security firm that recommended that she not leave home. Witnesses who are members of law enforcement have testified that they've been doxxed, that they have gotten threats not just at work, but at their homes as well. And beyond that, witnesses have described threats to their families and to their children. They've described threatening letters being sent to their family members and having to move houses because their addresses have been posted online. Many of the 90 interviews that the committee has conducted this Congress have been with ordinary Americans, regular people who are just trying to do their jobs. Republican investigations this Congress have jeopardized the health and the safety of everyday Americans, regular people, the people who sent us here to do work on their behalf. This committee appears to be more interested in advancing conspiracy theories than in doing our jobs, serving the people we represent, those regular people. The posturing here in this committee is rooted in a deep, dangerous cynicism, a cynicism that threatens our very democracy. And it is very hard to watch. I yield back.
Right. Exactly. That was Congresswoman Becca Balint, Democrat from Vermont. Yeah, that's the whole issue. That's why I was struggling to talk about Hunter Biden. That's why I was like, I'm going to go ahead and pull cut to tape anyway, but oh God, I wish I wish I had a phone book so I could read it. You know what I'm saying? I wish I just had something else that I could do. Like, will they keep listening to the show if I just sit here and pick my nose? Is there anything else we could do? And that's what Congresswoman Balint is saying. Could we pick our nose? But is there anything else we could be doing right now? And is there anything else we could use this environment to get done right now? This is the issue. I think a lot of people are worried about the future of democracy right now. I don't necessarily think, and I'm beginning to kind of hear it through Congresswoman Balint's verbiage, I'm not so sure at the moment that the biggest threat to our democracy right now is even anything like misinformation or disinformation or even white supremacy. I think it's cynicism. I think the biggest threat to our democracy right now, in my view anyway, I think the biggest threat to our democracy right now is the distrust that the American people have in the inherent goodness of one another once we get to Congress. I think the biggest threat we have right now is that we have gotten cynical about the people who are running our government at every level, about their aims, their qualifications, their ability, and whether or not they give a damn about us. Granted, some of them are not very capable, and some of them don't give a damn. But I think our lack of faith in our capacity to use these systems to do good, that's the biggest threat to democracy, because that's the point of our government. The point of our government is to do for the American people what needs to be done. If you don't believe it can do that at all, why are we here? What is this for? That's the threat. And I think controversies like the Hunter Biden controversy, whatever merit they may have, should not be enough to grind the rest of the government to a halt and put two committees at each other's throats with its members just kind of hollering across the room and yelling and no order and, throwing insults. And it's insane. And so the biggest risk is not just that Americans would swarm one another and attack. It's that they would disengage so thoroughly that chaos would reign. That's the real threat to democracy, I think. What we do about it, good question. But I think we have to be careful not to pull away too far. I think we have to find ways to look at the foolishness and to really dig into it as much as we hate it, because the people who really would hurt our democracy are counting on us leaning back far enough that they could put their hands on the wheel. Not on my watch. We can't have that.